My name is Danny, and I've spent a lot, and I mean a lot, of time camping, hunting, fishing, and all sorts of stuff having to do with the outdoors. For some context, I live in the Appalachian Mountains of northeast Georgia with my son. It's a very scenic place to visit and go camping in, especially in the fall. It has some great hiking trails, some pleasant rivers, and of course, magnificent mountains. Those who have heard or been near the Appalachian Mountains will probably have a better understanding as to what I'm talking about. Anyway, it was the beginning of November and hunting season had just started, which meant big game for the hunters. I've always admired the sport ever since my dad taught me back when I was a kid, and from there on, I've been pretty good at it as well as my son. There are, however, some dangers I've been in while hunting or camping. Everything from a tornado heading my way to a massive thunderstorm and heavy rainfall, so I've been in some pretty sticky situations. Anyway, we were walking through the national forest with our hunting rifles while wearing long cargo pants and a jacket as it was surprisingly well into the 50s. My son Brandon was only 9 at the time, which some might argue as being too young to shoot, but I was a responsible parent and taught him the basic use of firearms. My first thought was to use the deer hunting tower that was hidden deeper into the woods, but I felt as if that were too advanced for him. Eventually, him and I sat down for a rest break when I noticed a seemingly large buck about 25 feet away. I told my son to get his rifle ready, but he ended up missing his shot, which made me annoyed, but I knew he was still learning. With the deer now gone, my son then asks me if I see that object in the woods. I look at him and I see that he's pointing into the woods behind a few trees when I see it. About 30 or so feet away was a seemingly large white container. Now, I've been in this area many times before, and not once have I ever ran across something like this. I told Brandon to stay put and not to move from his spot while I went to go check it out. The closer I got to the object, I began to realize what it actually was. About 10 feet away from me was not a container, but rather an old freezer. From the looks of it, it didn't look to be that old. In fact, it looked like it was here for, at most, a day or two. At this point, I was thinking, why in the world would there be a freezer laying out in the middle of the woods? However, as I got closer, a smell I could only describe as rotting flesh filled my nose. In fact, it became so bad that I had to cover my nose with my hat. Whatever that smell was surely coming from the freezer. It was illegal for locals to dump their unwanted garbage in a national forest, but I wasn't going to leave until I was sure what it was. Needless to say, I put on my gloves and took a deep breath to compose myself before figuring out what was inside. With my courage finally gathered up, I open the freezer and see a black garbage bag tied up with several pieces of duct tape along with a cell phone. An iPhone 8 to be exact. There were multiple flies swarming around the bag, indicating that there was indeed something inside. Not knowing what to do, I call up the park ranger and inform him to contact the proper authorities. When they arrive, a whole team of FBI agents and 2 detectives arrive in the scene, while taking photos and questioning me. My wife came to pick up my son while I still got questioned. The following week, I was having my morning coffee when I was reading one of the papers and stumbled upon an article that shocked me. Apparently, about a week ago, there was a 16-year-old girl who had gone missing in the area and was never found. I felt as if 1,000 pounds suddenly dropped on me as I remembered what I had found. The local authorities never updated me as to what happened, but I'm convinced till this day that what I found in that freezer was in fact a body. With the freezer being so far into the woods and with me finding the cell phone, was almost certain that my theory was correct. If you see something suspicious that you are unsure of, please, for the love of God, please do the right thing and contact the police. My name is Jessica, and this happened to me just last week, and I'm still frightened over it as I write this. I live in a townhouse, which is basically multiple houses combined together that look almost identical to each other. My house is located at the far end of the street where the house is cut off, so I was the last house. My friend had just started living with me as he had lost his job due to the pandemic, so he was forced to go jobless and had nowhere to stay. Being the good friend I was to him, I allowed him to stay at my place so long as he helped me around the house. One night, I was up late working on a paper when I got up to go to the kitchen for a glass of water. As I'm walking back to my room, I hear what sounds like a baby crying from outside. I'd say right away it caught me off guard, as hearing a baby during the night was the most random thing you could possibly hear. I walked over to the front door and realized that it was coming from my front porch. At this point, I was skeptical to open the door, so I figured I'd call the police to ask what I should do. When I call, the 911 operator frantically tells me in a worried tone to not open that door no matter what. I asked why, and he said that there was most likely a serial killer nearby, trying to lure me into checking in on the baby. 2 police cars pulled up to my house and retrieved the so-called baby, which turned out to be a baby carrier with a recorder hidden inside. Police did a thorough sweep through my neighborhood, searching for the possible killer, but they didn't find anyone. I haven't had any other strange encounters since then, but just knowing that he's still out there haunts me. I'm a female, almost 38 years old, and would like to tell you about an experience that I had with my dog at the time. It's been about 11 years. One night in autumn, I decided to take a little walk around our housing estate with my dog, Sunny. Sunny was a black and big Labrador mix. She's really good and cuddly, but she hates other female dogs. She also has a strong protective instinct and always snarls when she doesn't know or doesn't like someone or something. There were no streetlights inside of the settlement. The only lighting was always at the house entrances. There was also a small park with small playgrounds between the rows of houses, but as already mentioned, everything was in a complete darkness. That's why Sunny was not able to be seen, only to be heard now and then when she was chasing a rabbit into the bushes. Then it goes without saying that she wasn't on the leash. I only needed this when other female dogs are nearby. Sunny listens to my word and always comes when I call her. So while I strolled through the dark settlement and froze my ass, Sunny ran happily through the area and the bushes. I always only guessed where she was because I couldn't see her. I could only hear her from time to time. When I looked more closely, I could see Sunny. She ran in large circles around me and the place where I was, and I thought she was chasing something, but the circles she drew grew smaller and smaller. She didn't make any noise, and I went on comfortably because I thought she was having her 5 minutes. At some point, I didn't see her anymore, but I went on knowing she would follow. Then I heard a sound. Footsteps, but they weren't mine. I was startled because they were so close behind me so suddenly. I turned around but couldn't see anything thanks to the darkness. I got nervous and called for Sunny because it could have been someone with another dog. Sunny didn't come and I easily panicked. She suddenly stood in front of me out of nowhere and began to growl as violently as she has never done before. My blood froze because it couldn't have been a good thing. She then started walking straight ahead, growling about 2 or 3 meters, and then stopped, and at that moment, I recognized a figure, dressed in all black. Whoever this person was shocked in front of Sunny and didn't move, and Sunny started barking like there was no tomorrow. The person slowly walked backwards towards the lighted house entrances. And then I saw Sunny's bare teeth in front of the young man wearing a hooded sweater. Sunny started to jump, and at that moment the guy let out a scream, and you could hear something falling from his hand onto the floor. He ran and my dog followed. After I had released myself from the shock of stiffness, I called out to Sunny as loud as I could, until after a short time she was standing right in front of me again, wagging her tail. I took her on the leash and we went back to where the guy had dropped something, and indeed, there was an arm-thick branch on the floor that he certainly didn't have with him to throw sticks. At home, it gradually dawned on me that Sunny did not have her 5 minutes when she circled me, but that she had long since noticed and kept an eye out to that guy to protect me. On the other hand, it was creepy, but also a relief. I am still forever grateful for this great dog. When I was around 18 years old, I had moved to a new house in a rural area outside of Oregon as my dad had found a better job opportunity for his work. I lived with my dad ever since my mom had unfortunately passed away due to a car accident caused by a drunk driver. Even though she had died in vain, my dad still provided for me and took care of me. Our new house was located in a very secluded area on some wide grassland on the countryside, making it difficult to leave the house to go somewhere. Overall, the town we lived in was okay, if anything a bit stressful due to financial issues. It's just one of those small towns that would practically rob you if you stayed there too long. But seeing as my dad got a new job opportunity, there was really no choice. To the east of my house, there's a massive forest that went on for miles. Whenever I had to go to school, I'd have to walk along a dirt road that cut through those woods in order to get to the bus stop, which was about a good 20-minute walk. We used the public bus as a reliable form of transportation as we didn't have a car then. Anyway, I had been enjoying our new place so far and found it relieving being completely isolated from major cities with a bunch of people. Until this one day, where I encountered something that nobody should ever see or go through. I had just gotten off the bus with my friend named Todd. Him and I were planning on going to my house to work on a school project together as this was a 2-person presentation. We get off the bus, and as him and I are talking about 18-year-old stuff, he points to his left and notices an old parked car that I've never seen before, about 15 to 30 feet away. Now, I don't mean the car was physically parked like how you would park your car in the driveway. In retrospect, the car clearly looked abandoned even from our perspective. I've been through this trail many times, and I never once stumbled across this car, so the fact that he pointed it out was surprising. Todd, being the infamous daredevil he was, decided that him and I walk over to the car to check it out. Even though his idea didn't seem harmful or dangerous, I told him that we had to work on our project before it got too late. He then went on to tell me that it was fine, don't worry about it, and it's not a big deal. After several more attempts of him persuading me to go, I had to agree. We started walking over to the car until we were about 10 feet away from it when Todd told me to go first. I cautiously walked toward the car, not expecting to see anything, but I had this strange feeling, like a strong sense of dread. When I got about 2 feet away from the car, I noticed that in the back seats were what appeared to be dirty old cardboard boxes. I mentioned for Todd to come over, and then I, for whatever reason, against my better judgment, decided to take a look as to what was in these boxes. I motioned for Todd to come over, and I then, for whatever reason, against my better judgment, decided to take a look as to just what was inside these boxes. I lifted the top box briefly, and what I saw sent a chill down my spine. There were at least 100 photos, posters, and even DVDs of child pornography. I nearly threw up at the first sight of it. I rushed over to Todd, telling him that we had to get out of here and that we had to get back to my house to call the cops. As stated before, my house was miles away from the nearest police station, so it would take a while for an officer to arrive. Within half an hour or so, an officer from the town finally came, but as soon as we led them to our disturbing discovery, the boxes containing the evidence were gone. Needless to say, the officers still believed us and took our statement very seriously, and I don't know what they did after that. They took down the license plate number of the car, but I'm not sure if they found out how old it was or who it belonged to. The car is still sitting there as I write this, but I'm not exactly sure if they'll remove it or not. Till this day, I'm convinced that we were being watched in those woods by someone who obviously didn't want us there. And that's a very, very scary thing to think about.